Several years ago, a man left his farm and went to Washington to spend a few days with his son, who was a United States Senator. One evening at a social function in the nation's capital, the senator's father was introduced to the ambassador from Belgium. They had hardly exchanged greetings when the man asked a very surprising question of the ambassador. He said, "Sir, are you a Christian?" Well, the answer never came. Well, for the embarrassed senator, he interrupted and quickly changed the conversation and hurried his father away. It wasn't long after that time that this elderly man came down with pneumonia and died. And among the many flowers at the funeral were some roses from the ambassador of Belgium. And attached to those roses was a note that read, "He was the only man in America who asked if I was a Christian." Friends, so many times we find ourselves in the same situation of Martha, in whose home Jesus was visiting. She was complaining to Christ that her sister Mary was not helping her with meal preparation. And Jesus said, "Thou art careful and troubled about many things, but one thing is needful," Luke 10, verses 41 and 42. Now I want you to think about that statement for just a minute. We all have our own problems that bear heavily upon our minds. Some of us are concerned about our health, or perhaps the health of a loved one. Some of us are worried over financial problems. Some are disturbed over domestic problems. Maybe it's a marital problem or a problem with our children. We could go on, naming the various types of problems that are often on our minds. Yet we have another problem so much greater in magnitude that it ought to overshadow each of these other problems. For we see that man's greatest problem is his lost soul. And we need to recognize that the solving of this problem is the most important task that we have. It's the most important thing that we can do. Jesus asks, "For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" Matthew 16 and verse 26. There is only one way through which we can save our souls, and that is through Jesus Christ. The Lord taught in John 14 and verse 6 that no man cometh unto the Father but by me. And just before that he said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." He's simply saying, if you are going to heaven, then you're going to have to go as a Christian. For we see that there is no other way. In Acts chapter 4 and verse 12, we find these words, "Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men, whereby we must be saved." Here again, we are simply being taught that there is only one way to be saved, and that's by being a Christian. When we realize that to be a Christian is to be saved and vice versa, the question, "Am I a Christian?" becomes the paramount question and concern in our lives. In 2 Corinthians 13 and verse 5, Paul says, "Examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith." Those who want to be saved will be interested in truthfully determining whether or not they are Christians. And this requires, first of all, a knowledge of what the Bible teaches, and secondly, self-examination. And as an individual begins searching for the answer to the question, "Am I a Christian?" he should understand that the Bible uses the label Christian in a much more restrictive way than our world uses it. The definition of the people is not the definition of God. Since God is the one who will judge us, it is His definition of a Christian that we should learn, that we should accept, and that we should follow. To borrow an illustration from one prominent preacher, our lives are like flagstaffs. Some flagpoles are tall and prominent, some not so tall and prominent. But the glory of the flagstaff is not its size, but the colors that it flies. A small flagpole carries the right flag. We see that in carrying that flag, it is more glorious than a tall and prominent flagpole carrying the wrong flag. The preacher who used this illustration said, "I suppose the most satisfying thing when this life is over will be the ability to say, I am ashamed that I was not a taller, straighter flagstaff, but I am not ashamed of the colors that I flew. So the question that we need to ask ourselves today is this: are you a Christian? Are you carrying the banner of the cross out into this world and living out your faith before those who are lost? Friends, the Scriptures tell us that if we keep our faith hidden, we're keeping it hidden from those who are lost, those who need to see God working in us and to see the transformative power of the Word of God. So I ask you in closing today, are you a Christian? Only you can answer that question. Friends, we thank you for joining us for our program today, and have a blessed day.